Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent Training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class. Please feel free to leave your questions about English pronunciation or American accent in the chat at any time. I'll get to those in just a moment. And you can ask about words that you find challenging, pronunciation, sounds, patterns. I'd be happy to help you with those things. At the start, I'd like to talk a little bit about these words, that is this and these, because I often hear people have a little bit of an accent error pattern on these words. And when you mispronounce, or if you mispronounce these words, it can sound like you're making an error in grammar. And people have excellent grammar. They can speak English really well. They just have some accent patterns that end up making these words too similar to each other. And of course, you don't want to sound like you're making an error in grammar. So let's talk about what happens there. So first of all, the word this we use with the singular, of course, as in this is a book, this is my friend, this is good. And the word this has letter I and vowel I. So one thing that can help to make sure that you're matching and saying that vowel correctly is to use another word like is this, where that vowel I is the same, or it's this, this is his. All of these have the I vowel, and that can help you. And then this also has letter S, says the S sound. So for this, you can think of other words that rhyme with this, like kiss or hiss or miss. And that can help you because with these words with the two S's, it may be easier to remember and use that S sound. Then when we come to these, we have the same TH sound, but now we have the E vowel. So letter E says the tense E sound. And one of the things that can happen is that you may be saying something that's kind of in between these two words, right? It's not clearly an I, this, or an E, these. Many people have a vowel that they use that's somewhere along that continuum. If we look at the vowels, according to the placement, the E, like these, is very high and tense. And then the I, your tongue is a little lower and it's more lax. And you end up maybe with something that's kind of in between. So making them really distinct from each other. For most people, the E vowel, you have that in your native language. And the first thing that happens is when you're trying to say a word like this, you just use the E vowel. Then after you've been speaking English for a while, you tend to make a distinction between these two, but you may end up losing that nice E from English and from your native language, and it may become a little more of an I, an in-between vowel. So the first problem is to establish the I vowel strongly, and then the second problem is don't let your E become an I or become too close to an I. So thinking of it as two E's can help. That's how we spell it in words like see and green. And again, matching. These are green. He sees these. Being able to use those same vowels can help you get the difference between this and these. And then we see here the letters SE often say the Z sound, and in the word these, they do say the Z sound. We especially hear that when we're linking to the next word, like these are, we're going to hear that Z sound strongly. If I'm just saying these by itself, I don't need a strong Z. I don't need to say these. It's light and soft, but my voice should be on. The vowel is going to be held longer as well because of that Z sound. So trying see these green teas, for example. This is his kiss. Being able to make a distinction between those two is going to be really helpful when it comes to making sure that you're saying these words correctly and making fewer grammar errors. Or you may not be making the grammar error, but it might sound like you are. So that's why I wanted to start with these words. They're good to practice. I think another thing, a reason that these can cause problems is that they usually go by pretty fast. I mean, if I'm saying, I like these is stressed, but a lot of times I'm saying, these are good, these are not good, it goes by quickly, it's in the unstressed, unimportant part of the sentence, and so then it's hard to pay attention to the pronunciation there. Practicing lots of repeated phrases with these words can really help, especially this is, these are, to get used to the grammar there as well. Okay, you can get more help for those vowels, the E and the I vowel, the S and the Z sounds in my videos for those, as well as in my online course, The Sounds of American English. It's going to walk you through the spelling and the sounds, how to correct error patterns, how to do that kind of practice to make those changes. Also check out my American Accent 6-week course that will look into even more detail on developing practice habits to improve your pronunciation and your accent. Those are all on speechmodification.com, and my online courses are either free or available for under $2. So I hope you'll check those out. Okay, I've talked enough. Now let's take a look at some of your questions. Again, if you're just joining us, feel free to type your questions at any time in the chat. And if you're watching this as a replay, you can leave questions in the comments. I'll come back to you with resources and answers, or I'll cover your words in a future class, such as our Word of the Day class, which we have every day. Okay, nice to see you guys. Welcome. We have a question about the difference between rules and regulations and how you use them. So they can be interchangeable. I'm going to recommend, I always like to look up words in the dictionary. So of course I'm a native speaker. I know the difference between certain words, but sometimes when you read in the dictionary the examples, it really gives you something you can use to remember. So the dictionary I like is the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. When you're on my website, speechmodification.com, you can go into the free practice area, and there's a search box here at the top. If you type in what you're looking for, so you can type in a word or a sound. I'm just going to type in dictionary, and it's going to pull up all of the lessons related to the dictionary. So I have one here that's talking just generally about using online dictionaries, and there's links to the dictionaries that I like there. So we'll go to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, and to look up, let's look up rules first. So rules apply to a game or a group. They are typically less formal, whereas a regulation might be something that's happening legally, like that some governing body sets the regulation. So here we say rules of activity, rules of a game, and they give lots and lots of different examples. And you can use that to see, okay, this is the place where I want to use, or I'm trying to use it. And then if we look at regulation, I think having an example sentence in your mind, as well as reading some example sentences, can be very helpful. So for regulation, it says it's an official rule made by a government or some other authority. So what I told you, but again, here we have fire regulations to comply with government regulations. So you can use those examples to help you understand and also to help you remember. Because oftentimes we look something up, it makes sense to us, we understand, but it's the remembering piece that's challenging. What I would say for that one is I would think maybe school rules, government regulations. So it's going to be less formal, or the rules of play, the rules of the game. He broke the rules in the game, etc. Okay, good question. Thank you. We have a question about the words, let's see, develop. Okay, this is a great word. So for the word develop, what I often hear here in this word is that people will stress the first syllable instead of the second syllable. So the rhythm of this word matters. We want to be short, long on vowel, and then short on the up syllable. Why it matters so much is that the vowels are going to be, what vowels we say don't really match how they're spelled in terms of it would change if the stress was different. So the DE is unstressed, and so it has the I vowel that we were talking about with this and it and is. And you can even think about it as though it were a schwa, like duh. You don't want D, you don't want develop, because that would be how we would say it if that first syllable were stressed. I'm stressing on the vel syllable, and that's where my clear vowel is. Devel. And then again, last syllable is unstressed. So we don't say an O sound for the letter O. We say the sound like a schwa. So I would write it like this: develop, develop. For any word that's not stressed on the first syllable, it's always a great idea to start by practicing on the stressed syllable and then add your unstressed first syllable. So this would sound like velop, develop. You hear how really light and short I was on that duh syllable, develop. I do have a video for develop and developer because this is definitely a word that a lot of people use in tech and in business, and they may have a little bit of a different stress pattern, or they might be saying the vowels differently, and that will make it hard for the native speakers to understand you. So that's a great word. Thank you for that request. Okay, let's take a look. We have the names of some countries. So Germany, Russia, and Poland. So for Germany, first syllable stress, we have the vowel here, like we often spell with ER. The letter the letter G says the J sound that we often associate with letter J. So I'll write it this way. We do have the word germ in American English that has the same pronunciation. So stress marker, we have the J sound, and then we have a stressed Germany. So letter A says the sound. I'll rewrite it like this: Germany. And then for Russia, again in American English, first syllable stress, letters SS here say the SH sound. So it sounds like rush, and then the I has no sound, and the A says the sound, Russia. And lastly, Poland, we have first syllable stress. We have a true O vowel there, so it's just like the word Pole or this word pole. Make sure you do a nice, clear, long O sound. And then rather than land with the A vowel, because this syllable is unstressed, it just sounds like Poland. So there might be a little schwa sound there, or you might go right from the L to the N, Lun, Poland, Poland. So Germany, Russia, and Poland. I did just recently do a video about Ukraine too. That's been in the news a lot with everything that's going on in Europe these days. Okay, let's see what else we have. Question about, do people pronounce oil without the Y? It almost sounding like all instead of oil. Okay, so asking about boil as well. So your question is, in a word like oil, you'll see in the dictionary this. This is the way we write the diphthong oi. I often write it this way because that's how we say it in words like boy or toy, but we also do spell it with oi, like in oil. And I would say that if you're noticing a lack of the ya sound. So what we have here is there's no ya written in the word, right? But we do, because we're in that I vowel, or the end of the oil, we end up kind of with oil. That gliding ya sound happens because we have a little bit of a dark L here. We have a schwa sound. So if I'm moving from this shape of this shape to the oil, we end up with a glide there. In fast speech, I need some oil for the car. I use olive oil for cooking. I think I always have that yeah in there. I just go very quickly. I think this way of writing oi is a little misleading where um, that symbol is for the ah, but we don't end up with an ah in oil. It's not like ah, oil, ah. This is just how we write that glide of oi, oi, that it starts in the tongue starts in the position for the ah and lifts to the position for the I. Oi, oi, oil, oil. So you don't really want to spend a lot of time on oil with a strong y sound, but I do think you kind of need it there. It just naturally happens if we're gliding um, between the two. So your question was, will you hear all, oil or all instead of oil? Maybe some native speakers do that, especially in the South where diphthongs get a little bit monophthongized, as in rather than having a gliding sound, they just stay on the first sound. You hear that with the I diphthong too in the South, that it kind of sounds a little more like ah instead of I, missing that kind of closure. So depending on where you are, you may hear that. Maybe in New York as well, a little bit. You can imitate what you hear around you, but it's also not going to sound wrong, and it's not going to be incorrect to have that gliding ES sound in there, oil. Okay, I'm giving you kind of lengthy explanations today. Sorry. Thank you for those of you who are waiting for me to cover your word. Let's keep going through and see what else we have. So many wonderful questions here. Let me get to the next one. We have questions about the word diverse and diverse. So they don't sound the same, but there are two ways that we say diverse. So what's the main difference here is that it's going to be stressed on verse versus diverse is going to be stressed on the die syllable. So people do say diverse with the I diphthong, diverse, but the die is going to be shorter and the verse is going to be longer. Also, in diverse, it's like this, diverse. We have this SE says S versus in diverse, this SE says Z. So here we have diverse, and here we have diverse or diverse. You can use an I there or an I. But close, the sounds are fairly close. So we have that same thing that we had in this and these with the S and Z sounds that I talked about in the beginning. So looking in the dictionary and seeing that you see the Z symbol here and the S symbol here can be helpful. So we have a diverse group of divers. Great. And then you also were asking about was bitten or he got bit. He got bitten, he got bit. People will say both. I think bitten is probably grammatically correct, but people just reduce that to bit. He got bit by a snake, he got bit by a dog. Bitten is, when you're writing it, you definitely want to write bitten. When you're speaking, bitten is correct, but you will hear lots of native speakers say bit. Okay. For the sentence, he wasn't in class, do we omit the T or is it a stop T? So he wasn't he wasn't in class. Wasn't in. So usually what happens with the T depends on what's next. But in a word like wasn't, we're going to use the stop T even if there's a vowel here. If I was doing, for example, get in, this would be a flap because it's linked to the D, or get bat, it would be stop T, get bat, because it's linking to a consonant sound. In wasn't in, because we have the z, wasn't, he wasn't in, he wasn't in. We don't link that because there's so many sounds. Typically, I don't think we would change it. So it wouldn't become wasn't in. Leaving it off, wasn't in. Yeah, people might do that sometimes. He wasn't in. So I guess if we did link it, it would be getting rid of the T. Or if you're going to make a little break, he wasn't in. I personally think I mostly would use a stop T there. But I'm often surprised when I go back over natural speech and I listen and slow it way down, that we do have multiple ways of saying things. So the doctor wasn't in the office, wasn't in. Yeah, maybe I do sometimes leave that T off and link it. It wasn't in the drawer. It wasn't in the drawer. I do think linking sounds pretty natural to leave the T off. So great observation on your part. So I'm kind of giving you lots of different answers there, but it depends on the context. So if you're linking, drop the T. If you're not linking, for whatever reason, use a stop T. Great. Okay, we have a question about, okay, yes, you had left me a comment about in an unpleasant or in an unemployment. So in the phrase, in an unpleasant, because the stress in this phrase is on the pla syllable, in an unpleasant, in an un, that goes by really fast and gets a little bit reduced, especially the an. So if I was saying an by itself, it would have the black cat vowel, an apartment. But we rarely have any stress on it. So most of the time, we just say it with more of a syllabic N. So in or it gets a little bit, it could be more of an S sound like the red tent vowel. I think the best way to practice this is to try starting with your in. So this won't change too much, except it'll be short. I still have the vowel there. I don't start with n. I start with I, in, innen. And then see if you can add a syllabic N here. So in, innen. To do that, I just drop my tongue and I lift it back up to the N again. Innen. And then when I add the unpleasant, again, this un is going to be very short, unpleasant. So practice that by itself by saying the word pleasant, unpleasant. So I do need a bit of a schwa there. I don't want it to be totally unstressed. So in an un. So for the linking, I'm going to go right to the un, in an unpleasant. So you can try doing in an un by itself, in an un. So my tongue is just lifting up for those N's. This one, pretty much no vowel. This one, a little bit of an sound. Un, an un, in an un. So I can go from the back to un, an un, in an unpleasant. And your other example, in an unemployment. Well, that one's even harder. In an unemployment, unemployment, in an unemployment. I would say that one we can't link quite as much because unemployment has two unstressed syllables before we get to the ploy. Unemployment. I have to go a little more slowly there to get those sounds. In an unemployment. In an Okay, so that's a little bit of a tongue twister. I see why that's challenging for you. Just breaking down the sounds though and kind of feeling that tongue just lifting back up to those ends. Take it slow and then speed it back up. You can even come back after class to this video and on YouTube you can slow down the playback. Not in a live class, I don't think, but in the settings, click on the settings dial and then put it at even maybe 50%. Listen to how I'm doing that, go slowly and then speed it back up. Then you can set it at 75% and at 100%. It's a great technique for hearing what really happens and kind of going through that slowly yourself. I do have a couple videos showing you how to use YouTube and one specifically just about slowing it down and then one talking about slowing it down and using that as a practice technique, I think it's a great resource. My videos, or just any video that you're listening to, you can listen for how things link together, how people naturally say sounds, and slowing it down can help you really hear those transitions more, imitate them at that slower speed, and then speed back up to more natural, fluent speech. Great. Okay. Yes, Mahmoud, I did see your question about suicidal and suicide, and I'm pretty sure we've covered that before. So I skipped it. I will cover it for you again. So for suicide and suicidal, and I think I also made a word of the day video for you for these, because I recall you asking about them quite a while ago. So we have suicide, first syllable stress, and suicidal. For suicidal, second stress on the side. So suicide, suicidal. Yes, those are a little bit tough of words. The spelling of the UI makes it unclear, but it's just similar to the word juice, for example. We have the oo vowel there. Great. Okay. Great. So I'm assuming I can still talk about that. I see there's some comments about that. So I actually just skipped it because I can go back after class and refer you to where we've covered that before, but now we've covered it. Okay, we have a question about in the phrase "what your" is the stop T could be linked with you as a D sound. So what you're talking about. We won't link that and change it to a flat because the y sound of your is a consonant sound. So if I'm saying what is, then I would link here and have more of a flap like a D. What year, I'm going to use the stopped T there. So check out my video for final T, for what we say for T at the ends of words. After class, I'll put a link in the comments with some timestamps so you can see where that video is. So it's the same as if I were saying like what can, I'm going to use that stop T there, and rather than a D. What your, yeah, it would be strange with a flap. It wouldn't work. Great question. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. We have a question for extraordinary. I do have a video for this as well. And I'll refer you to that after class. So it looks like extraordinary. I think you may hear people say that sometimes, but what we tend to do, extraordinary, is that we don't say this syllable, and we end up saying it more like extraordinary. So extraordinary. So the tough thing is it's easier to do extraordinary to do the syllable, because then we don't have to do the roar. Roar is hard. I would try building it from or. I think I'll take this. I just wrote that because of the word roar, but I think I'll take that A out because it's a little confusing. So trying or, roar, extraordinary. Yeah. My other video for this can help walk you through it a little bit more slowly. And it does talk about extra versus extraordinary. But it's tough because we have the tror and then the air. So we have the double, multiple R's in that word. Good suggestion. Thank you. Okay. We have a question about pregnancy, how to pronounce pregnancy. First syllable stress, pregnancy. So even though we see like the name Nancy here with the A vowel, because we're stressing on preg, we don't have an ah sound in pregnancy, pregnant. So we just have a schwa there, and then cy says this and the e sounds. So rewriting that, I would just say preg, nun, C, and go really quickly on the nun. There's almost no vowel there. Pregnancy. It's kind of funny. The nun in the pregnancy. Okay, we have also heteronym. So heteronym. This Y says the if vowel, first syllable stress, and that has the same vowel as in pregnancy, the F vowel. The T ends up being a flap, so it sounds kind of like a D. Head, the O is a schwa, nim, header, oops, get confused about which one I'm writing. So try heteronym. Yeah, that's a challenging word as well. It's a little bit hard to know what the sounds should be for those letters, but rewriting it this way, I hope makes it clear for you. Okay, we'll just take a couple more today, and then we'll need to wrap up for today. I will be back tomorrow with Word of the Day, like I do every day. And channel members, I've been trying out some different times for our member classes. You can join this channel as a member, and we have an extra live class each week for members to ask their questions. They can also ask throughout the week, and I'll cover their questions within that week. I do have so many requests for Word of the Day, and it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for all of you who've been leaving me comments and suggestions for that. We've had lots and lots of great words, and I'm working my way through the list. But it's kind of a long wait now because there is such a long list. So if you're in a more of a rush, do come to these Friday classes, or you can join as a channel member. That's a great way of supporting the channel. And also you can then get your answers within a week in the members only class. Okay, we have a question about how to say your eyes. Okay, so first let's start with eyes. That's stressed here, and it's going to have the I diphthong and the Z sound. So I would say thinking about it like eyes, like in prize or size, might help you. And then if we're saying it slowly, if I'm stressing it like your eyes, it's going to have the or diphthong. But often your gets changed more to your when it's not stressed. So if I'm saying your eyes are beautiful, your eyes are blue, I like your eyes, I'm not going to say your, I like your eyes. I can, it's not incorrect, but in fluent speech, your is often reduced to more of an sound instead of an or, your eyes. Yes, great. We have a question, vocabulary, about what do you describe the action of learning quickly and much for a short period of time? Oh, so for an exam. So we say that, what we say is to cram. We cram for an exam. And they actually rhyme. So cram for an exam means to study quickly, hard, kind of try to cram as much into your mind as possible. It's different than taking a long time and trying to systematically learn everything. That's more like memorization and what you're describing. So they call that cramming. He's cramming for his exam. Okay. Question about when you drop the D after an N, like in hand and mind. In the following case, can you drop it to falling down, saying falling now, falling down. If I was saying he's falling down, he's falling down, he's falling down, falling down. I don't think so. I think if the D were to drop there, it would be strange. Falling down, falling. Yeah, I think you need that D. Otherwise, it'll sound like falling down. It'll just sound nasalized, and the D will be missing. Great. Okay. I may not have time to get to everyone's questions. I do need to wrap up shortly, but I'll try to get through if I haven't answered at least one of your questions. My apologies if I miss some of them. I do go back afterwards and go through the comments. And if I have a video or lesson relating to your topic, I will give you a link for that. So do return later today or tomorrow and check out the description and the comments for this video, and I'll have some useful links for you there. Okay, we had a question about pottery. So for pottery, we have first syllable stress, and letter O says the ah vowel. So I would think of that like an A or an AH. You'll see it as this A in the IPA. And then we have the E. So pa, the T is a flap here because it's between two vowels and it's not stressed. So it sounds more like a D. So I'll rewrite that way. Pottery. Good word. Thank you. Okay. Question about how to pronounce PRE as a prefix. For example, predict or present. With E, okay. So the letters PRE say different things in different words. In predict, the dict syllable is stressed, and so it's going to be a schwa, and it'll sound like predict. In present, the verb, it's also going to be a because the zent syllable is stressed. Excuse me. Sneeze coming, but it didn't come. And in present, the noun, it'll sound like present because the is stressed. So it rarely is going to say pre, except sometimes. For example, preview has first syllable stress, and it's going to be the E sound. So the best thing you can do is for words that start with PRE, look in the dictionary for after the PR, you're going to see an E if it's an E sound. You're going to see an like in present if it's an S sound. And a lot of the times you're going to see a schwa because you'll see that it'll start like this, and then whatever is stressed there, present, the stress line will be before the second syllable. So when the PRE is unstressed, it's going to be a sound. Prevent, prevention, prescription, etc. So a lot of times it's going to be this sound. And then it's going to be either an E or an if it's stressed, depending on the word. Preview or present. So word by word, you kind of need to look them up and get used to them. I do think I have a video about this, and I also have one for words starting with PRO that can say or pra or pro. So there's a lot of different pronunciations there. It is tough with prefixes. That's a pre-example because it does make a difference word by word with the stress. And then even the stressed ones don't always say the exact same sounds. Okay, wonderful class today. Thank you so much for your great questions. And again, my apologies that I didn't get to everyone, but we'll be back again next Friday. So do return again, ask your questions there, or leave me a comment, and I will go and follow up with you as best I can to give you some videos to help you with what you're looking for. Thanks for a wonderful class, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's Word of the Day class. Those of you who are channel members, I'll see you in Saturday's members class, and again next Friday for our live question and answer class. I am considering moving this class to Saturdays, so let me know what you think about that, if that would work for you, or if you prefer to stay on Fridays. I'm making a few changes in my schedule, so that might be something we do in the future, is have a Saturday class rather than a Friday class. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.